So today I've been thinking about my favourite quote by Uncle Alan and the way it relates to a concept I toss around in my head a lot, phrasing triangulation. So the quote is, you don't understand the underlying assumptions of your own culture if your own culture is the only culture you know. And that sounds more complicated than it actually is. So when we live in our culture, whoever we actually are, we learn to live within that culture from within it, and we don't ever look at it from the outside. And the assumptions we are given by that culture are unspoken, and we absorb them without realizing we've absorbed them. But when you engage with another culture, for me, it was the not really very accurate version of Japanese culture that came with practicing karate. It moves you away from the culture you started in, so you can look at it with a little bit of an outsider's perspective, and then you start to see the assumptions and think about them. And this is like, if you want a kind of simple metaphor for that, this is like triangulation when you're reading a map. If we're hiking across the moors and we want to know what that pile of rocks ahead of us is and relate it to a feature we've got on the map, then we can take a bearing on it. If we know where we are on the map, we can take a bearing on that pile of rocks and then translate that bearing to the map and draw a line on the map, and when the line meets a pile of rocks, it must be that pile of rocks, right? Well, that's really simple. That's plenty enough if the landscape we're walking over is simple. But the landscape of Dartmoor is not simple at all. And the fact that there's a pile of rocks that you found on the map that is on that line might not be the pile of rocks you were looking for. So what you actually do is you walk a kilometre that way, and then you take another bearing on the same pile of rocks, and you draw that line on the map from where you know you are. You draw the bearing on the map, and where the two lines you've drawn cross, that's the feature you're actually looking at. And there are a lot of people going through their lives trying to navigate with that single bearing and not taking the time, and it is time and effort to walk that extra kilometre that way and get a different bearing. But if you don't change your perspective, you will fail to understand the limitations of the perspective you are operating from most of the time.